Thank you
very much.
You're welcome.
A town hall meeting, but with huge consequences that could change how and when we die.
Tonight is not a debate, and it's not about winning an argument, it's about having a conversation.
Labour's Peter Swallow, like MPs up and down the country, must decide whether to support assisted dying in a free vote later this week. But first, he wants to hear from his constituents, many of whom have personal stories to tell.
Her natural death would have been bedbound, blind, unable to swallow, unable to communicate, and she would have laid there until she suffocated. She didn't want that.
How can the doctors and the nurses take this choice? How do they make that as a decision for themselves?
We are created in God's image. Only He can decide when and how we die.
This week we'll see the first Commons vote on the issue in almost 10 years, but it's the first time there's a real chance the law could change, and new MPs are feeling the weight of responsibility.
The vote on the assisted dying bill is probably one of the most ethical quandaries that is facing this Parliament.
Usually you just vote with your party. This is different. Does it feel like a very personal decision?
Absolutely. Death is a personal subject. I hugely respect the principle that everyone should have a choice in how they end their lives. I think it's just about making sure the right safeguards are in place.
This is proper grassroots politics, a public meeting in a town hall, an MP genuinely undecided, and the issue a matter literally of life and death. The discussion that's had here tonight and in meetings like this up and down the country will inform the vote next week on a landmark piece of legislation.
Well, there's some really worrying parts of it.
Conservative Harriett Baldwin voted against assisted dying in 2015 and is concerned that changing the law would put pressure on patients and doctors. She also has a personal story, as she almost lost her father.
He was effectively dead at points. Although the doctors did not think that my father would make it, they did keep him alive, and for 98 days in intensive care, no one thought he would make it through. He made it through. He lived to see his grandchildren grow up, and we're so blessed that we had him for those extra 20 years.
What do you make of the latest legislation? They say that they've put as many safeguards in place as they can to try to reassure MPs.
I think it's very difficult to say definitively that someone is going to die within the next 6 months. But there's also the matters of conscience for doctors themselves. As you know, the legislation calls for 2 doctors to certify that someone wants to kill themselves and that they will help them. And if you go to a doctor who doesn't want to do that, they are legally required in this legislation to refer you to someone who will. And I think that puts our doctors in a very difficult position.
On the other side of the country and the debate, Labour's Jeevun Sandher is finishing off a day of meetings in his Loughborough constituency. Many have reached out to him on the issue, including Gordon, whose brother died of cancer.
It was very, very painful, and he definitely wanted to go. Oh no, he said, I don't want to go home. I just want to get this over. These are things which make me feel that really assisted dying is long, long overdue.
And look, we should be clear that 17 people die every single day. People like Gordon's brother, for whom palliative care cannot allay their pain. They are built a tolerance to opioids, they're allergic to them, you can't just pump them full of morphine. It was a few years ago now, but my uncle was dying and I was there with him, and it wasn't a pretty sight, as it were. I remember I walked out of there, and my dad turned to me and he goes, I don't want to die like that. And I looked at my dad and I was like, I don't want you to die like that. I don't want my mum to die like that. I don't want anyone to go through that.
Back in Berkshire, as the discussion comes to an end, the vote draws near. On Friday, MPs will finally decide whether to take the first step on what could be a groundbreaking journey. Liz Bates, Sky News, Sandhurst.